Hello again. Yeah, my name is Wirdum. I work for Bitcoin Magazine, and I did just write a book. It's called the Genesis Book, not the Genesis Block. It will be available in January. It's about the origin story, the prehistory of Bitcoin. I'm joined by Elizabeth Stark, the founder and CEO of Lightning Labs. Also, one of the first people to start building Lightning, including the Lightning community. You've been there from day one, before day one. Lightning wouldn't be what it is today without you. I think that's fair to say. Anything to add to this intro? Are we good?
Well, I'm super excited to be back on stage with you. We've had some fun conversations, and we've really been through a lot in the Bitcoin community. And so thank you for all of your work, Aaron. Huge fan of everything you're doing. Can't wait to read the book.
Of course, yeah. So every couple of years we check in on stage on the state of Lightning. So that's what we're doing today. So congratulations on launching Tapo Assets. Let's start there. Tapo Assets. Elizabeth, what is it? Why should people care?
So at Lightning Labs, we're building infrastructure for the Lightning Network. And we deeply care about Bitcoin. We deeply care about financial freedom. We care about security, decentralization, obviously scalability, and all of that. And one major area of demand that we've heard, especially from emerging market users, is the ability to send things like USD stablecoins or Tether instantly with low fees globally around the world, right? And many of these folks are also using Bitcoin, but for example, 2 billion people globally today are living under double or triple digit inflation, right? This is a global issue, it's international, and people want access to dollars as well as Bitcoin. Now, of course, the goal from our end is to get them all into Bitcoin, bring Bitcoin to billions, which we will. But in the meantime, there's this great demand. So the idea is, what if we came up with this protocol for, having assets on both the Bitcoin chain that's scalable and does not clog up the chain like some recent protocols we've seen come to light. And then also on Lightning so that you can send assets, fiat stablecoins on Lightning channels. The end user just knows they're sending low fee Bitcoin. They might not even know the full aspect of like Bitcoin Lightning, but they're using the Bitcoin network to send USD, say, or other fiat currencies over the Lightning network. And what this does is it gives them access to the security and decentralization of the Bitcoin chain and the whole system. Bitcoin is by far the most secure blockchain. It has, by far the most hash power backing it up. It has the most liquidity as an asset. It's by far the most known cryptocurrency out there. But then it also gives people all the advantages of the layer 2 for Lightning. And importantly, when users send, say, assets, stable coins, something like a USDT over Lightning, they're actually using Bitcoin to route the payments. So if I'm running a node on Lightning, we have like 18,000+ node operators today running active Lightning nodes. All I have to do is put Bitcoin on the Lightning network, and I can route the payments in all the fiat currencies that are going to exist with this protocol. So what this really means is Bitcoin becomes a global routing currency and a global routing network for all of these other assets, fiat currencies, so on and so forth. Basically, we're bringing it all back to Bitcoin. And that's the goal with this recent release. This past week, we just had the mainnet release of Tapo Assets and kind of building out the developer community.
Just for my own understanding, so if you're sending a USDT over Lightning, what actually happens on Lightning is that a amount of Bitcoin worth one USDT that's being transferred. Is that right?
Exactly. So you have what we call edge nodes. So, I might be Alice, I'm sending to Fred, and then Bob becomes an edge node, and you have Alice, Bob, Carol, Dave, Aaron, and then Aaron becomes an edge node. So there are these nodes that do a conversion, if you will, and then the middle nodes only know about Bitcoin. So for node operators, they're just routing more Bitcoin and they're getting more fees, which they like. And importantly, the kind of rate for this is set by the recipient, and it happens so quickly that, in terms of volatility with the price of, say, a Bitcoin to USDT, there wouldn't, be much there because it happens, say, in a second or less. So part of what I think is so genius. And by the way, shout out to my co-founder and our CTO, Roast Beef, aka Lalo Osantokan, who is, if you've ever heard him, the fastest talker you have ever met. I think you can attest to that.
Yeah, and just a genius.
Yes, that too. Lightning fast talker. This was his brainchild, really, in terms of looking at Taproot the upgrade to Bitcoin that came to fruition in November 2021, and seeing what new possibilities it could provide. And one thing that I thought was funny was when Taproot first activated, like there was an article saying like, Taproot's a big nothing, like no one will be able to do anything with this. And turns out Taproot enabled a lot of creativity and development on Bitcoin. Right now, we've never seen more building and excitement for developers and for the Bitcoin community more broadly. And I'm sure it's only going to increase from here. So he looked at Taproot and he wanted to see how you could build a scalable protocol using Taproot, using something called Merkle sum Merkle trees. And if anybody wants to read about the technical details, you can check out our documentation and all sorts of other great articles there. But broadly, you don't have to store all this data on chain, which means that unlike, other protocols that have clogged up the blockchain as of late, this is built with scalability in mind so that, the base layer of Bitcoin will work with this protocol, and also the layer 2 Lightning part will work, and it'll be scalable, and it's kind of, in line with Bitcoin's core values of security, decentralization, and importantly, scalability.
And just to be clear, so as I understand, we've been talking about USDT a lot in this context, but from what I understand, Taproot Assets is infrastructure you've built, and it can be used for any asset.
Yeah, so it's an open source protocol. So we have published a number of BIPs, Bitcoin Improvement Proposals. Check them out. They're highly technical, so that's more of a developer thing. And that's a proposal to the community to say, hey, here's our technical spec, technical proposal. Anyone else can come today and build their own implementation of the Taproot Assets protocol. We've built ours at Lightning Labs, but other people can do so. We've also published what's called a BLIP, Bitcoin Lightning Improvement Proposal, for the Lightning portion of the protocol. Also inviting the developer community to comment, give feedback. We're actually running community calls for developers about every month. If you're interested, go to twitter.com/lightning or lightning.engineering. We have more information there on how to get involved in the community. But this isn't just Lightning Labs. For example, we've had a whole host of external developers contributing to the protocol, submitting bug reports. We've had great feedback from the community on mailing lists. So yes, it is an open protocol, and the developer community has given us really great feedback and contributed along the way. And then in terms of actual assets, it's a general assets protocol. So you can issue stable coins. People are issuing what are called collectibles, which some people refer to it otherwise, but as a general matter, it's a protocol where you can issue all sorts of assets. Now, we are just building the infrastructure, and then it's up to the issuers to use the protocol to issue those assets.
Right. So let's move back to the Tether example for a second. So right now, most Tethers are using Tron. I believe the majority, or at least a lot of Tethers, are on Tron. Do you believe that this, I assume you think this would be a better protocol for Tether? Is that?
So what I believe is going on with the Tron situation is Tether is being used in emerging markets, Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, as places where I believe there's a lot of usage. People in those economies want access to USD, right? But they also want, they respond to incentives, they're smart, they get it, they want low fees. And they want fast transactions, right? And today, they're getting that on Tron. Now, I'm a big believer in decentralization, in peer-to-peer technology, in the security that Bitcoin provides. But what I believe those users are saying is, we want something like Lightning. They just don't know it yet, right? So enter the ability to have low fee, USDT, also, obvious today, Bitcoin transactions over Lightning. And that will give those folks access to what they want in terms of low fees. They may not know they want decentralization because you kind of don't know you want decentralization until it's too late, right? But they do. And they'll want the security of the network. So to me, that's actually latent demand for assets on Bitcoin and Lightning, this idea of the multi-asset, Bitcoin and Lightning. And the goal with all of this, and right now, we're in the midst of what I've been calling a Bitcoin renaissance, right? We know there's going to be a next cycle. The nature of Bitcoin is there are lots of ups and downs, right? We have the halving coming up in 2024. There's always a lot of interest and excitement. Obviously, the new supply is cut in half. And the narrative of being back to Bitcoin is going to be a big part of that, the renaissance, the idea that people are building, people are using it. We've seen lots of growth on Lightning. River recently published a report with 1,200% plus growth in the last few years. And that's even a little bit lower than we've seen at Lightning Lab. So it's substantial in terms of usage during what was a bear market in the broader crypto sphere. It was actually a Lightning development and usage bull market. And what you see during bear markets is usually people are focused. They're building. Instead of all the frenzy and the hype, they care about the core values, and they care about solving real problems for people. And the people in emerging markets and the people globally that are using this technology, they're using it for reasons, that aren't speculation. They're using it for their daily life. They're using it for, their small businesses. They're using it for remittances and cross-border payments. So this technology is bringing solutions to them and will continue to do so.
Another thing Lightning Labs has been working on is AI payments. I think it's called L402 is what it's called. So what is this?
So shout out again to my co-founder and CTO, Roast Beef, who came up with this actually in 2020. So for those that aren't familiar, HTTP 402 is the error code that the creators of the web, including Tim Berners-Lee, came up with in the early 90s. And the idea was we should have natively embedded internet payments on the web, right? So people know of like HTTP 404 not found. That's like, oh, you're on a website and the page isn't there. 402 was created back then for what was called payment required. The creators of the web envisioned that there would be a native way to transact and pay on the internet. It's funny, it was just too early back then. We didn't have Bitcoin yet. And in fact, part of what even got me into Bitcoin and inspired me to start Lightning Labs was the idea of having this internet native payments. Why today can we send a photo in any application, on the internet? It's completely interoperable, but we don't have interoperability of digital money. Well, obviously, Bitcoin and Lightning changed that, and that's what inspired me. So, in 2020, Lalu came up with this concept that we now call L402, kind of harkening back to the HTTP 402, that enables developers to natively pay and authenticate with a Lightning payment. So as an example, let's say I'm going to a site that has APIs. I don't need to have a username and a password. And by the way, I don't know about you guys, but every time you sign up for like a web app, your personal information might be compromised or stolen, and then you get an email, like a month or two later, like, sorry, like we were hacked, right? So you don't actually have to sign up with an account or give personal information, so it's great for privacy because you can natively authenticate with the payment. You send in the payment has a token, not to be confused with like the shitcoin kind of token. This is just an authentication token. And as a result, then you can say, process the API call. So that was released in 2020. People thought it was cool, but what we were really waiting for was the use case that made this possible. Lo and behold, we've seen a lot of hype and excitement in the AI world lately. People are familiar with LLMs, large language models. ChatGPT, the kind of explosion of chatbots, of course, Stable Diffusion, the explosion of AI image generators, prompt engineers, all of that. And it turns out, using this protocol can be really useful because AI agents need ways to transact and pay. And it's not like credit card companies or banks are going to give, an AI agent an account or a card, right? Arthur Hayes, folks may be familiar with him, actually the day that we did a big release had written that Bitcoin will be the currency of AI because it is decentralized, because, no one can stop it, and because anybody can program on top of it and tap into it. So we actually released an integration with LangChain. For those that aren't familiar, it is an API that makes it really easy to run AI agents. And think about this. So let's say I'm interfacing with an AI agent, and then it wants to say book my travel, or pay for something online. Well, there are ways in which it could have a budget, and then it could transact. AI agents could pay other AI agents. A human can pay an AI agent. An agent could pay me. Lalu actually tweeted, in 2023, the bots pay you, right, using Lightning. So we announced this integration with LangChain, and a new release of the L402 protocol. And there are all these really cool demos. There was this AI for All hackathon this past summer, and shout out to Stack, Fedi, and a bunch of others that were involved. And the idea here is, today, a lot of these AI companies are using credit cards. Well, guess what? A huge swath of the global population does not have access to the credit card network. That automatically excludes people, right? A lot of new AI developers are young, they're global, they're all around the world. With this technology, they can then, say, create their own model and start accepting payments over Lightning using Bitcoin, soon stablecoins and whatnot. And they can actually, say, monetize just with the ability to tap into the global internet of money as opposed to using the fiat system, which isn't really going to work for them anyway, like the traditional system, right? And so this opens up barriers. You don't have the risk of chargebacks and the ridiculous fees. Oh, right. So when it comes to fees, if you're looking at a credit card-based system, they charge something like in the US 3% plus like 30 or even more cents. Well, maybe I just want to charge 5 cents, US cents or 5 euro cents per API call. The existing system doesn't even allow that to be the case, right? So what this technology enables is you can have very high volume, low value payments, like true micropayments, with machines to machines, right? You could have 1 million transactions per second, and maybe they're like 1/10 of a cent. And that all adds up, and you can have significant precision there as well. So, people used to ask, well, why do machines need to be able to pay machines? Why do you need these micropayments? With the advent of AI and these LLMs, it's become much more clear. We're giving agency, so to speak, to these AI agents. We're allowing developers to enable AI agents to talk to each other and use technology like Lightning to transact with each other, which is going to open up all sorts of possibilities in the future. So check out L402. There's a whole developer community as well getting involved and working on it. And it's enabling Bitcoin and Lightning to be the payment layer for AI agents.
Do you have some cool... You mentioned there's some demos. Can you give some cool examples of this?
So there are a number of demos, for example, that enable you to pay for access to ChatGPT, and then other people are using, say, LangChain and APIs on top of that. For the hackathon, people built gateways to, say, AI image generation. So, for example, instead of having to use a credit card to subscribe to a chatbot system, as people are doing today. And those are rate limited as well. In many cases, I believe it's like within a couple of hours, you can only do with GPT-4 like 50 queries, right? Because it can be quite expensive to do more. Well, using what we're building, and we've had all these demos. By the way, there's also a really cool site called Replit that I suggest folks check out that has enabled developers to do a lot of this dev and have a number of containers for this. And we've seen, shout out to Cody Lowe over at Fedi, who's been involved in that community to hook up the Replit devs with using L402 and a number of the like LangChain and APIs over there. So the ability is you can, say, authenticate with a Lightning payment and then do an API call, say, to a chatbot or to an LLM, and then get the result back, right? So I was also chatting with Alex Svetsky here last night about the really cool work they're doing for more specialized LLM models. And the ability to have, L402 payments, because maybe not every AI model will be specialized for the same, area. There might be one that's Bitcoin specific, or one that's like neuroscience specific, or specific on a certain subset of economics, right? So the goal here is to democratize. Paul Itoy, founder of Stack, said something really interesting. There was a podcast with Lalu from our team, Paul Itoy, Kathy Wood over at ARC, Cody Lowe, etc. Definitely check it out. It's an ARC podcast. And he said that, Bitcoin is scarcity and AI is infinity, right? And there's infinite information in the AI space. With Bitcoin, we know it's scarce and there's only a limited number of coins. And to me, there's a real danger of AI centralization, right? You see these big tech companies, they're paying like $1 billion or more to train their models. And that's not the kind of future I want to see for the way that things are evolving. So what we're doing is bringing Bitcoin values of decentralization when it comes to opening up opportunities, opening up markets, and opening up monetization to this broader developer community by not hopefully having just the big tech behemoths centralize everything because they have all the capital and all the money. So the goal is really to use Bitcoin to help decentralize the broader AI development community.
Right. Very interesting. So we got about 2 minutes left, and I want to ask you about Noster as well. So Noster has been integrating Lightning, or at least, well, it was recently removed from the Damus app.
It's still there, but just in a more limited form, yeah.
All right, okay. One of the critiques or criticisms of Lightning on Noster, though, is that most people use it custodially, so they're not really benefiting from the self-custody and peer-to-peer nature of Lightning. Is Lightning Labs working on this? What's your take on this?
Well, first off, shout out to the Noster community. We've seen so much development and excitement around building an open messaging protocol. Part of also what got me into Bitcoin and Lightning is my passion for open protocols, that cannot be controlled, that cannot have walled gardens, that cannot get shut down. And the irony is that, a walled garden, aka the Apple App Store, then came around and actually dictated to one of the apps how to use Lightning. And I believe we're going to get beyond that, but we also need to break free of these walled gardens and closed systems. Today, you can still send a zap on Damus, but it's on the profile page as opposed to on each zap, and the whole thing is completely ridiculous. And with Bitcoin, we will break free from that. But one thing that Noster did was open a lot of people's eyes to Lightning. I heard stories about people that had never used Lightning that went out to Noster, posted a note and received a zap. And they were like, oh my God, I just got money like that instantly. I mean, it was eye-opening for these folks. Now, yes, these early adopters are going on to a number of services. I mean, Wallet of Satoshi is huge on the platform. But at the end of the day, it's up to us as a community in Bitcoin and Lightning to build solutions that are self-sovereign, that are non-custodial. Shout out to the Human Rights Foundation. Alex Gladstein, I know Alex Lee from there is here as well. They've been doing incredible work on getting people together around usability in terms of wallets on Bitcoin and Lightning. They have a number of bounties out. But to me, this is a usability question. Interoperability of wallets is a big area of interest of mine and at Lightning Labs more broadly. Leo Weiss on our team has been really into that. He writes a bunch of our documentation. So at the end of the day, we need to make this technology usable for everyday people. We need to make it so that people can be self-sovereign. They don't have to use custodial options. We should give them the option, and they can pick what works best for them, and we should make things more usable. So from our end, usability, interoperability, and building non-custodial solutions to empower folks around the world is a big priority, and it's in progress, and we're going to get there.
Great. All right, we're out of time. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.